Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Lauren Zimmerman. I am the owner of the Writer's Block Bookstore located in Winter Park, Florida. Also, and we just opened up a store in Winter Garden, Florida, which is both in Central Florida. And I'm here today meeting with Lana, and I apologize if I'm saying this wrong. We didn't talk about how to pronounce your name. Bastašić. Hopefully that's correct. And we're going to talk about her new book, which is not new to her. This book has been published in Europe, and it won the 2020 European Prize for Literature, and it's coming to the United States. And the book is going to be coming out in June. So what we're doing today is we're interviewing Lana all the way from Zurich, Switzerland. And we're going to talk about her book, and we're going to ask her questions and just learn about her writing process and just kind of get to know her, so that when the book does come out in June, we'll all know a little bit about her, which is very fascinating. So welcome. Hi, Lana. Is your okay, good.
Yeah. Hi, Lauren, and thank you so much for inviting me. This is very exciting for me because it's the first time that I get to talk to American readers. And also I told you the first time that I see somebody actually holding this edition. So I'm very happy to be here, and thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. So let's start with just you giving me a little brief what they call elevator pitch of the book. Kind of tell us a little bit about the book. But when you do talk about it, I'd like to talk a little bit about the title and why it's been compared to, a modern day Alice in Wonderland. So tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, it's always hard for me. I'm still getting used to this thing, which I think is a very American thing. And that's like, sell us your book in one sentence. No, it's like the European in me is dying every time I do that. But yeah, I just wanted to tell a story of what it was like growing up a little girl in Bosnia during the Civil War and just the years right after the Civil War. And I wanted to give this. We've had a lot of typical war stories, but I wanted to show the consequences that they've had on young women, and especially what it meant to have a certain name that was considered wrong. So the question of identity just came to me immediately as one of the burning questions that I had to tackle. And of course, if there is one book dealing with a little girl who finds herself in a country with this insane logic that doesn't make any sense, where everybody's asking her, who are you? Where are you from? That's Alice in Wonderland. So I thought it would be symbolically nice to connect these two books, but also structurally for me as a writer to structure my novel based on the 12 chapters of Alice in Wonderland. So,
oh,
is that it?
Yes, that's good. That's good. That because we'll keep talking about it. I'll keep asking you questions so that it'll unfold. So when did you write the book? It's been a couple of years. When did you start writing it?
Yeah, it has been a couple of years, and it's strange because now with every translation I have to, the book is, for me, it's something that finished in 2018, and when I wrote the original, but now it's just starting its journey in these other countries. So at the time I was living in Barcelona, and I had been living in Barcelona for 4 years in a different language, different life. Everything was just different me, really. And so I wanted to write this story going back to my childhood in Bosnia and going back to my language too. And it took me some 3 years to finish my first draft. And that's how it all started, really.
So so you wrote it, you were in Spain and you're writing the book in, what is the forgive me.
No.
What is the language of Bosnia? What is it called?
That is a very complex question, everything. So don't feel bad. Like not even we know what to call it. It used to be called Serbo-Croatian, but now because of political reasons, there are 4 different names. So somebody would call it Bosnian, somebody would call it Serbian. To me, it's all the same. It's language. It doesn't really care what we call it.
Is it Croatian also? Is that one of the?
Yeah,
one of the,
Serbian, Croatian, all of it
because
is right.
that's the one that I remember. Like when I was thinking about it last couple of days, I kept thinking Croatia, and then when I was reading this again, I'm looking at it going, oh, Bosnia. So we should probably have like a map, a geographic map up, and maybe we'll do that. That'll be kind of fun when we start pitching it and doing it. We'll put a little map up, and we'll put maybe a globe, and we'll put stars of where you are. All where is Lana? Where in the world is Lana? I don't know if you've ever heard that, but there used to be a show in America was like, where in the world is Matt? But so you've lived in Spain. You're from Bosnia. Have you ever lived in Dublin, where the story starts?
No, it is a funny story actually, because the book is about to come out here in German, and my bio on this German edition says that I lived in Dublin for 12 years, which is not true. Yikes. I mean, I visited, but it's just facts and fiction kind of getting confused. So no, right. But I mean, I majored in English language and literature, did a lot of work on just James Joyce and Irish literature in general. So there has always been this connection with this city. But no, I've never actually lived there.
So how many languages do you know?
So I like to think that I know English. I apologize if I make any mistakes. So English, Spanish, Catalan, Italian, my own language, which now is 4. and now I'm slowly starting to learn German. It's very difficult, but I'm not giving up.
So, and I think I made a mistake before when I said Zurich. It's not, is Zurich in Switzerland?
It's in Switzerland, yeah.
But they speak German?
German, yeah. Especially this part of Switzerland.
Okay.
It's Swiss German. Yeah.
So I'm helping out all the geography people that are geography deficient, so they don't feel bad about themselves. So I could, it's like where I get to ask this silly questions. So, all right. So, Lana, the story, it talks about the two friends, Leia, and Layla, like the song you just
like the song.
I blame my age. And Sarah, who haven't spoken in years, and they have a lot in common from their days in Bosnia. And so they are adults now, but the relationship that they had were as children during the Civil War, right?
Exactly.
And they're both living in different, Layla lives in Dublin, and I guess Sarah is and where she's in Bosnia, right?
Yeah, so Sarah is in Dublin, the narrator is in Dublin, and
Sarah
has been there for quite some time. Mm-hmm. And she's kind of the one that managed to cut make this clean cut from her past, and also her language, which means that she's also kind of repressing a lot of memories, whereas Layla is the one who is living in South Bosnia, so she's still kind of stuck there in Mostar, which is a very beautiful town in the south of Bosnia.
Yeah, and so they're on their journey. They're looking for her brother. They're looking for Layla's brother, and so they go from place to place, and it's the relationship between the two. It's almost like, I guess Sarah doesn't trust the situation. She doesn't trust what's happening. Like, she is second guessing her decision to even go on this little road trip. And so that's kind of interesting. And so during that road trip, they kind of can rehash their relationship and try to understand at the same time, she's trying to understand what is the hold that she has. What was this promise that she made very early on in her life, that for some reason she feels like she's obligated to make do well on the promise. So is that about right? As a reader, the book, good. Yeah. It's good. So did you have someone translate this, or did you translate it in English?
Yeah, I did the translation, the first translation, and it was just I was as I told you, I was living in Barcelona, and I had written this book, and I realized nobody knows my language. So I'm not gonna, instead of waiting around just whining how nothing is happening for me, I have to sit down and do the work. Otherwise, I'm not gonna exist. And
Right.
also in Barcelona and in Spain. So for me, I didn't even have an agent when I finished the book, and I finished the English translation myself. Of course, it was not perfect, but it was like a rough draft that I could at least show to someone, and that helped me get my Spanish publisher and finally get an agent. And so everything else happened. But it was such a strange journey to translate your own book.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
It feels like cheating somehow, but at the same time, I felt like there was no other way for me. Like nobody, I was living in that city, and I felt like nobody here understands me. Nobody here can even read this book, and you can't blame publishers for not having a designated Serbo-Croatian reader. So I just realized, no, I want to exist. I want to find readers, and I have to work for my book if I wanted to, to get it out there. So yeah.
So it was very good. I guess even, I guess it could. I'm having this mental picture of you translating it. Like I'm thinking, you're typing in you're using Google Translate, and then you're taking it, and then it's like, because
no.
But I know you're not doing that, but I'm thinking if it were me, because I'm terrible at languages, like if I can take a set, you almost have to translate it. The reason I'm joking about Google Translate is because you almost have to, and tell me if I'm wrong, because this is fascinating. You almost have to translate it one sentence at a time. Or can you take a paragraph and paraphrase and completely change and make that paragraph in English? Or do you go, or was there anything lost in the translation between the two languages? Like how did you approach that?
Well, Lauren, it was such an interesting journey for me because the book had not been published in the original yet. So making this journey, back and forth between Serbo-Croatian and English, I could actually see what I liked about the language, what I didn't like. So sometimes, because, in your own mother tongue, sometimes you let things, things just kind of slip and like you don't really think about it that much. But when you speak another language, you really have to think about every word. So this journey really helped me. So I would go back from the English, go back to the original and think this sentence could be better. So in a way, it was a text that was kind of growing both ways. But it was, on the one hand, you are the person who knows the book the best. But on the other hand, maybe you don't have the distance that is necessary for a good translation. So I was really trying to be as close to the original as possible. But at the same time, you just have to accept that something is bound to get lost in every translation. It's never going to be the same thing. So at least I thought if I could get the same emotions, across to the English reader, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, and because I was noticing, like when I read, I'm terrible. It's like movies too. Like I can't, when it's like I can't enjoy a book anymore. Like now because I own a bookstore, so when I read, I'm not just following the story. I'm also following the grammar and and the word choices and the prose and and because that helps me decide if I like the book. It's kind of like I take it to like the next level. Like how easy was it read? Like what is the use of the language? And I thought what I really liked about it, and I made a note and I spent all morning looking for it. And I'm so mad at myself. I'm gonna have to email you the sentence because but there was a word used that I love, but doesn't get the opportunity to be used that often in a sentence. And I'm thinking, oh my God, she put this word in here, and it was like, because, I'm noticing my daughter and she has a large vocabulary also. And so she's the kind of person that will use a big word that doesn't fit in the sentence, but it just sounds good in the sentence. And so I'm always like going, okay, let's look it up. Like that word doesn't belong in that sentence. I think you're wanting to say that, like a word we use too often, like it's ironic. And I'm going, no, that's not the way that you use ironic. And I, we go into these, hour-long dissertations on when to use the word ironic. And so when I read books, I'm doing that. And I think you did a great job. And I think that, I guess, because it was a journey and you're starting with another language and now you're forming new sentences and paragraphs, I guess it allows you to go back and, and American authors do this. I do it, looking at thesauruses and trying to find words that match other words that maybe tell the story a little bit better. And it's always fun to be able to use a thesaurus because you have that in your mind what the word is, and but you don't know if the word that you got on the page is like the best word to describe it. So you go to a thesaurus, and I really noticed that because it's just like, because I do that, it's like, oh my God, she went to a thesaurus. I think, I mean, in the fantasy world that I live in, and I make pretend that, I'm that way with movies too. I can't sit through a movie without just imagining, all the terraces, how they made the sausage, So what are you doing right? Oh, so right now you're in Zurich and you're doing a residency.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Tell me a little bit about this residency.
So yeah, I mean, it was really unexpected, and I just feel so grateful because the German, as I said, the German edition is about to come out, I think, in 2 weeks here, and here in Germany and Austria. So my editor at S. Fischer, which is the German publisher, just told me, well, they have this residency in Zurich, and it's 6 months, and apparently somebody just canceled. And they were supposed to be here in January. And I told them, just call Lana. She doesn't have a life. She can just pack up like this and leave. I was like, yes, that's true. I can just go. And so now I'm here and I'm trying to work on a new novel. It's very difficult because, I mean, this last one is still kind of, holding me and not letting me go, which I'm happy about, but also like trying at the same time to focus on this other thing. And I mean, I just wanted to go back to what you said about this thesaurus, because I find it really interesting. It's such a fine line between not using it and overusing it. And I think for me, that is also very American, this kind of MFA approach, or like work ethic that I like. But for me, it was also important to think about not my language, but Sarah's language, because the book goes through her and it's her filter. And I wanted her to have this kind of adorned prose. She uses a lot of metaphors, probably more than I would use myself. It's like I wanted her to be almost this kind of Humbertian, like Humbert and Lolita. I wanted this kind of narrator who would always put language between her and the real world, unlike Layla, who's much more direct. So I wanted this language to be constantly like a bit over the top, because that is the kind of narrator that I liked for this, and also because maybe she's not ready to face reality, so it's easier to always put something in between. Instead of calling something its name, you just use a metaphor, and in this way, of course, I mean, I had to use a thesaurus when I was translating the book.
And it reminds me of my daughter again, because she's a budding writer, so I'm just going to use her. But she's a lot like Sarah. She uses a lot of metaphors and in her writing and when she talks. And so it's sort of, I guess did you know that you're doing metaphors because your underlying theme is Alice in Wonderland, and that there's this, which is filled with metaphors. None of it makes any sense at all. And going down the rabbit hole, type of thing. And that's a metaphor in and of itself. And so I guess that she's Alice, right? I mean, in a way, not really, but in a way. So she is going through life of metaphors. Like I'm experiencing this like a bear experience, so it's sort of like she's out of her own body looking down like Alice and seeing this happening. And the best way she can describe it is is just being very articulate and using and choosing the right words. And I guess our character, she learned English pretty well. So in Dublin. Yeah, so I noticed all that. So I hope it's okay that I told you that I shared that I noticed it, because it's, as a reader, we always want to kind of get to know the author and why they were thinking about using this word. So when you're in your residency, do they expect you to teach, or do you have to do it? Is there another job that you have? Do you just get to live there and work quietly in your space?
It's a terrible privilege. I don't have to do anything. I just I just have to, I do have to do a couple of events and these kind of book talks, but not really too many. So I'm just supposed to write. It's great. Everything is closed here in Zurich. Still, nothing is open. All the shops, coffee shops.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah,
which is not bad, because this city is like the most expensive city in Europe. So I'm happy that everything is closed and I can cook and make my own coffee. But yeah, I can just focus on writing. And it is hard for me, because I'm not that I don't see myself as attached to only one style. And I feel like each book should have its own voice, especially if it's written in the first person. So now what I'm trying to do here in Zurich is like find a voice that is not Sarah, find a different voice. I don't want to be kind of a slave to my own writing ego and say, this is my sentence. No, it has to be the sentence that belongs to this book, not the other one. So that's what I'm basically now in Zurich, just looking for a new voice.
Well, are you on a college campus, or where is the residency located?
So this is there is a great organization here called the Literaturhaus, which is literature house, and they organize these residencies. So they actually have an apartment for the writer, so I'm here in a very nice residential area of Zurich, and a lot of birds singing and singing in German.
You could walk, and that's maybe the getting out of the four walls maybe helps with your imagination, because I guess that's what you're trying to do right now, is to, I think that I feel like I want to now go to writing school, because that's really what I think writers do the best, is creating a real life in their own imagination. Like and that happens not on paper, it happens in your thinking. How do you create a human, and really make that person come alive and have a personality? And so, like, what is your writing style? Do you start with like an outline, or do you kind of just start writing, just keep writing and let it all come out and then go back and edit? And are you writing in Croatia or English right now? These are my run questions.
Yeah. So to start from the beginning, I'm writing in my mother tongue. I just feel like, I have written things in English, but I just feel like when it comes to fiction, you have to stay close to yourself, and to me that's my language. So but I am, when I write, I am thinking like, how would I put this in Spanish or in English? And that sometimes helps. But yeah, when it comes to the process, it's different for every book, I guess. With Catch the Rabbit, the first thing I had was this idea: what if my country were a person? What would that person look like if Bosnia were a person? And I had this idea of this woman who is kind of angry and maybe a bit bitter, but it's like very stubborn, and how her identity and her physique changes all the time, and her name changes. So that's how I actually had Layla. She was the source of the story. But then you can have an idea, but then all the questions come. What is going to be the point of view? Who is going to tell the story? What kind of language? What kind of voice, etc. All those things that you have to think about. So normally I would start like writing longhand and just feeling it out, feeling the voice. Is this who is telling this? Whose story is this? But then once I have it more or less, I like to switch to my computer. I plan a lot, like even now for this thing that I'm writing, I have these kind of these kind of things, like I just see it as a responsibility, like it's yeah.
So I don't know what they call them in your language, storyboards. That's what that is, right?
Kind of.
It's like, it's like you've got the different blocks, and it's sort of like you're plotting out the story.
Yeah, but also like, you know, it's I'm not that concerned with the plot. Like I feel like more or less I have it in my head, but like things like here now I'm working with 3 different narrators. So it's more like, what kind of color is this person? What kind of like atmosphere do I want this kind of voice to have? What kind of, you know, imagery do I want to use? Do I want to associate each person with? So I like to plan these things. And then, of course, the plot is important, but sometimes it can surprise you. I mean, it happened to me before, so I don't want to like stick to it. Sometimes just, as you know, characters will sometimes have their own idea.
Because as you develop the character, they become more and more real, and and the plot changes with what really would work for them and their character. Like what would, if the character is changing and the story is going in another direction, and you're thinking to yourself, I don't see this character doing it this way, you know, and I have to listen to this character, has to tell me how they would perceive it and how they would make decisions. And
no,
so
there
like,
was sorry.
Do you like when you write, do you say, what is my character? Do you like just say, you just start writing as if you're writing your character's bio, or do you, and then just kind of like how the characters are going to interact with one another? Would they even be friends, or how would they have even, you know, been able to you know, work with each other, or you know, and so all of that is just character, I guess character development is the word, right?
Yeah, that's the I mean, it was a different process for these 2 characters, because I really wanted Layla to be, you know, uncatchable. I don't know if that's a word, but you know, exactly the opposite of what every writing course will tell you, which is you need to know everything about your character. But here I felt like we never really know another person. And what I wanted to portray is this quest to understand her, you know? So for Sarah, I had a very clear idea of who she is, of what she likes. I mean, even if you're going to put just 5% of it in the book, you really have to know everything about this
the backstory,
because she's speaking. I have to know, you know, what she's like. But for Layla, I wanted her to remain a kind of mystery. So I didn't want to over explain her, because why would Sarah know everything about her friend? That's impossible. So it was a different kind of process. I did have their bios written down, especially because it is in a very specific historical context. So to know the war started when they are 12, the war ended at this point, this was happening, I don't know, the mosque was demolished this year, etc. So I just to have like a clear layout and a narrative layout, and then I could play with it.
I understand that. I mean, that makes sense, because we're chasing the rabbit down the rabbit hole, so we don't really understand. I think that's perfect. It's really great. Okay, so now what I want to do is I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions, and just fun questions that I love asking authors, and I want you to just kind of answer them. And if you can't come up with an answer right away, just, you know, say next. And I
have to answer them right away, like no thinking.
I mean, if you want to contemplate, I think it's more fun to just know the answer, because I have so many questions. But it's fluid. So you're the one riding this horse, and so you can decide if you want to, you know, think about it or answer it or get back to it. So it's fluid, and it's a fun experience. So what is your favorite unappreciated novel?
Oh God.
First. Okay.
You're gonna hate me, but it's Ulysses.
What? It's in
Ulysses.
That's a good one. Yeah. So do you hide secrets in your book that only a few people will find?
Yes, I do.
That's so cool. So the people, is it like family and friends and people like that?
I mean, it's little things that are not necessarily important for understanding the novel, but it's like little messages for the people I love.
So this question would make you would require that you understand American cinema. But if your novel were made into a movie, who would play the lead role? Did you think about that? That's an American thing, isn't it? Because Americans think about it all the time.
It would have to be a Bosnian woman. I'm sorry. I just
yeah,
feel like
yeah, because I know it's kind of, we always, it's, you know, who would play the lead
well,
role?
actually, sorry. I'm really sad that she recently passed away, but a great Croatian actress, Mira Furlan, whom you might know from Lost.
Oh yeah,
yeah, and she is Croatian, and she just to me was she recently passed away, unfortunately. But like, I think she would be a great Sarah.
So, what are you reading right now?
I'm reading Magda Sabo, The Door.
And that is that a German book, or is that an American book?
She's Hungarian, but I'm reading her in English. I can't read Hungarian.
What's the name of the book again?
The Door.
The Door.
By Magda Sabo. Very good.
So, what is the main thing you want readers to take away from your book?
Emotions.
What has been one of the most rewarding experiences that you've had as an author?
Just somebody writing me an email telling me that this is the first time somebody told their story.
Oh, that is cool. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, this is a good one. If you could travel through time, when and where would you go?
I would go to 1920 to Paris.
Oh, I would go there. I'd go over there with you.
We can go together.
Yes, yes. And sit on the Champs-Élysées, how do you pronounce it? Champs-Élysées, and have wine at night. And
exactly, meet all those novelists. And
oh yeah, yeah. Let's see. Have you read anything that has made you think differently about fiction?
Well, probably James Joyce. Yeah.
Why?
Well, I think up to that point, I just had this idea of, I read a lot of realist, historical, Slavic fiction, and then you read this person who's destroying the language and just playing with it and doing whatever he wants, and you feel like, wow, I can do this, it's here to play with, and that just changed everything. Yeah.
That sounds really cool. What book of James, now let's talk about James Joyce. So James, what is your favorite James Joyce? Is it
it's Ulysses, definitely. Yeah, I've spent the most time with it, and I just enjoy it tremendously. It's very funny. I mean, people are scared of it, and it's kind of sad because it's a very funny book.
I'm gonna have to read. I have a lot of books at home that are, this thick that I talk about reading all the time. Again, it's back to being a bookseller and not getting the time to read something.
Exactly, I can imagine.
You're spending so much time reading books that are coming out in the future. It's like we no longer, the shoemaker that doesn't wear shoes. I don't know if you've ever heard that terminology.
Yeah.
And but I enjoy reading. I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I'm enjoying reading books that are coming out in the future and deciding if I like it or not, or, learning about the authors. But then I don't, it's like you dream
Actually,
about.
I feel really jealous because you get to, get out there and read these books before they actually come out and have an idea of what is happening, what is being written right now. I think that's great.
Yeah, I know. It's fun part, it's easier. When I get drawn to old literature to read, I get pulled back immediately when when a book comes out and a publicist or a rep is wanting me to read it and they're talking about it, and it's like, okay, because that's how I found out about your book. We get emails all the time from publishers, and they say, please read this book, it's fantastic, we're loving it. And I read the little pitch, the email pitch, please read this book, and I'm thinking, this does sound really interesting. So I replied back to the email, and I said, what do you think about talking to the author? This is really interesting. And so it's fun that I get to see those emails and to, find out about these books and talk about them.
No, and I also have to thank you, because it is exactly the people like you who are not only interested in what's being written in English in the States, but also like looking out for new voices from like different languages. That's huge for us. It's really important. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, you know, as the more we get into books and appreciate books, you know, I think that my obligations for as being a bookseller, you know, like I don't have just an obligation to read anymore. I have an obligation to introduce other lives to the reader, that to create a space for a reader where they can learn literacy and where they can learn about something that they would not normally know, especially now with, you know, the culture's changing so much and there are so many different voices and people are trying so hard in the publishing industry. I really commend them to really allow voices to come out. And so as a bookseller, I have to ask myself the question all the time, what's my obligation? Like what do I owe the universe in terms of introducing stories to the readers? You know, because I think that if you're an avid reader, if you really are a reader, you know, someone that loves to read, that's what you want them to do. You want them to go other places, learn about other people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, what is the hardest part of the artistic process?
Writer's block.
One of the questions was like, it was really funny. I said, never ask if you have writer's block, ask when you have writer's block.
I like that.
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of interesting because they say that if you say that you never have writer's block, you're not telling the truth.
Exactly. So I agree completely.
Yeah. Let's see what else. If you're organizing a literary dinner party, who would you like to invite? Well, we know one person that's going to be there, but like, have you thought about any others?
Oh, so it could be like dead people.
Oh yeah, dead and alive, you know, they're all together.
I think I would definitely invite Truman Capote. I feel like he was like a great person to have at a party, and then he would bring along Harper Lee, and then we would all have a lot of fun. Somehow I think of those people. I definitely wouldn't invite Kafka, you know, or one of those morose characters.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would get drunk with Truman Capote. Yeah.
With who?
With Truman Capote. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I can see that. Yeah. I mean, and then you could talk about his book, that book in Cold Blood, like how he was able to write that, you know. Yeah, everybody wants to meet Harper Lee. Maybe it's just because she's such a recluse. Like, you know, it's a mystery. Oh, so this question, you'd have to know who Superman, watch any Superman movies, but it says once you're writing kryptonite, like in the, you know, Superman, the kryptonite is the thing that pushes him away from, you know, that hurts him. Like kryptonite can kill Superman. So what is your writing? What is it about your writing that can take you away from, or give you put you in a place where you're in writer's block?
Well, it's interesting, but I think for me, it's like personal experience. When I want to use something that really happened to me, I have a problem with reality. It's easier for me to just invent stories because I have the necessary distance. But if it's like personal experience, I always have to stop and think, oh, how do I, is this even interesting? How do I put this, how do I turn this into something universal? So that can always stop me. So I always go for like imagine, you know, invented characters, and yeah.
I can see that. Because
I know for some writers, some writers can write great autofiction, great memoir, and I really appreciate this ability to find the literary value, the universal value in something that happened to you, which doesn't necessarily have to be interesting.
Right. Yeah, because then it's like, again, it's that fear of, if I write the book, no one will read it type of thing. Like, why would anybody be interested in? Yeah. But it's fascinating that you have to fight that every day. That is your kryptonite, because you have to say, no, I have to be my biggest advocate. I have to believe that people want to read my story. You know, you have to believe it, you know, if it's
exactly
as a writer, you know. Okay. So, is there anything, I guess we're getting close to the end. Is there anything else that you want to, you know, tell us about, or maybe you can give us a little snippet about the next book that's coming out, or we could, you know, are you going to, I guess it's still June, so they haven't planned any real virtual events for you yet, but what are you excited about that's happening right now in the next couple of months?
Well, yeah, I mean, I wish I could actually go to the States. I've never been there. I've
Oh,
never been across the ocean, and I'm happy my book can be there, but I would just love to meet my readers in person and talk to them and just have this feedback, which for me is interesting. Right now, yeah, just looking forward to all of these translations that are coming out, but at the same time trying to kind of tune that out and not think about the rabbit too much, so I can focus on this
yeah,
novel I'm
yeah,
writing now. Yeah,
yeah.
it's a
Well,
struggle.
yeah, I can imagine, because but you know, don't beat yourself up, right? You know, it's like, you know, we're in crazy, crazy times right now. It's insane. It's completely insane. If it was not the COVID, you would be fine. I mean, everything would be fine. You'd be in restaurants in
I
Zurich.
know.
You'd be flying to the States. I mean, it's just what we're going through right now is there's a story there. I know.
Yeah, yeah.
You
No,
know,
it's definitely a very strange time to bring out a book. I
it's
mean,
great.
but it's a
Yeah,
strange time for everything. So
yeah, for everything, but you have to live your life, and so you just
yes,
got to put one foot in front of the other, and but
exactly.
you got to promise that when you can get on a plane, you'll come to Florida, because we have beaches
Definitely.
here. We have Orlando is, you know, theme park capital of the world. I don't know if that's
No, I
great or
would
not
love
great.
one of my favorite contemporary American writers is Lauren Groff.
Oh
And
yes,
so she always writes about Florida, and just I love her stories. I have this idea of Florida, which is very like a Lauren Groff idea. And I also have a friend from Bosnia, a very good friend who lives there. So it's definitely a plan.
Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Lauren Groff just spoke at the American Booksellers Association. I don't know if you've ever watched her in any kind of Zoom event, but if you're interested in watching her, I know that you could get access to that actual event, because it's now on the American
Great.
Booksellers website. And I'm sure Allison could kind of swear you, you know, to that, take you to
Oh,
that
that's
site.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's the
I would
first time
love
I've ever
that.
seen, it's the first time I've ever seen her speak. Because she's you know, in Florida, she's you know, she's got a lot of fans in Florida.
Mhm.
Um, but anyway, but I want to thank you so much and I'm so excited to meet you, and I can't wait to start really promoting the book and have it in the store. I'll make sure that when it's on the counter that I mean, when it's in the store on the shelf, that I take pictures and send it to you
Yes,
so you can see
please
it.
do.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I mean, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this, and
yeah.
I really hope that we get to meet in person someday.
For your next, maybe when you're on the tour for your book you're working on right now,